The confrontation, the crystal chandeliers of Pinnacle, cast warm amber light across the mahogany-paneled dining room as Zara Winters balanced 3 plates along her arm with practiced ease. After 4 years serving the city's elite, she had perfected the art of invisible excellence, anticipating needs before they were voiced, it smoothing over minor complaints with genuine warmth, and maintaining the kind of professional smile that never revealed whether she'd had a good day or a terrible one. Tonight had been particularly smooth, till the front doors burst open at 9:30, sending a sharp crack through the restaurant's refined atmosphere. A man in an expensive charcoal suit strode in, his jaw set in hard lines and his dark eyes scanning the room with obvious irritation. Without pausing at the hostess station, he made directly for the center table, the one with the best view of the city skyline, currently occupied by a family celebrating their daughter's graduation. "Excuse me, sir." Elena, the evening manager, hurried after him with clipboard in hand. "Do you have a reservation? We're completely booked tonight. I don't need a reservation." His voice carried the kind of authority that suggested he was accustomed to doors opening without question. "That table. I want it now." Zara paused in her delivery, watching the scene unfold. The man's posture radiated entitlement, from his perfectly styled hair to his Italian leather shoes. She'd served plenty of wealthy customers, but something about his dismissive tone set her teeth on edge. "I'm terribly sorry, but that table is occupied," Helena explained, maintaining her professional composure despite the flush creeping up her neck. "I'd be happy to put you on our waiting list, or perhaps our bar area. Did you not hear me?" The man's voice rose just enough to draw glances from nearby diners. "Move them. Sure they'll understand when you explain the situation." Tommy, the newest busboy, chose that unfortunate moment to pass behind the man while clearing a nearby table. His tray caught slightly on the back of the man's chair, causing the smallest of bumps. The reaction was immediate and vicious. "Watch where you're going, you clumsy idiot." The man whirled around, his face twisted with disproportionate rage. "Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? It's more than you make in 6 months, I guarantee." Tommy's face went white. At 19, he was putting himself through community college and sending money home to his sick mother. Zara had watched him work double shifts without complaint, always polite to customers and staff alike. The injustice of seeing him humiliated over nothing made something snap inside her chest. Setting down her plates with deliberate care, Zara approached the scene. "Excuse me, sir. I'll be your server this evening." The man turned his attention to her, and she caught a flicker of surprise in his expression, perhaps at her calm tone. Or maybe just that someone was finally offering him service. Finally, someone with sense. "I want that table and I want your best wine selection brought immediately." "I'm afraid I won't be serving you tonight." Zara's voice remained steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "And neither will anyone else on my team." The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Even the soft classical music couldn't mask the sudden tension that gripped the room. "What did you just say to me?" "You heard correctly." Zara stood straighter, drawing on every ounce of dignity her grandmother had taught her. "Sir, your money doesn't give you the right to treat people like dirt. Tommy is hardworking and respectful, and he deserves the same courtesy you'd want for yourself. Till you can manage basic human decency, you're not welcome here." For a moment, the man simply stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then without another word, he turned and walked out, leaving nothing but the soft chime of the door and a dining room full of wide eyes. Helena rushed over, her face pale with panic. But Zara barely heard her worried whispers about corporate policies and customer complaints. All she could think about was Tommy's grateful smile and the strange satisfaction of finally saying what needed to be said. She had no way of knowing that her life was about to change forever. That revelation, the morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Pinnacle's administrative offices as Zara climbed the marble staircase to the second floor. Her stomach churned with each step, Helena's urgent phone call echoing in her mind. "Zara, you need to come in immediately. Corporate wants to see you." She'd barely slept, replaying the previous night's confrontation over and over. Part of her felt vindicated. Tommy had thanked her with tears in his eyes. Several regular customers had quietly expressed their approval. But the rational part of her mind knew she'd likely just thrown away the best job she'd ever had, The executive suite was a world apart from the bustling restaurant below. Thick carpeting muffled her footsteps as she passed. Oil paintings and crystal awards showcasing the company's achievements. Helena waited outside a heavy oak door, wringing her hands nervously. "I'm so sorry, Zara. I tried to explain what happened, but they insisted on seeing you personally." Helena's voice dropped to a whisper. "Just ... be respectful. Maybe they'll consider a written warning," instead of the door opened before she could finish. "Ms. Winters, please come in." Zara stepped inside, her prepared apology dying on her lips. Behind an imposing mahogany desk sat the man from last night, the same sharp features, same dark suit, though his hair was slightly less perfect than it had been 12 hours ago. His expression was unreadable as he gestured to the leather chair across from him. "Please, sit down." His voice carried none of last night's arrogance, which somehow made the situation even more surreal. Zara remained standing, her mind racing. "I don't understand. What are you doing here?" "I work here." A slight smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Marcus Blackwood. I own Pinnacle, all 43 locations, actually." The words hit her like a physical blow. She sank into the chair, staring at him in disbelief. You're the CEO, among other things." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her with those same intense eyes that had seemed so cold the night before. "Imagine you're wondering why you're not being escorted out by security right now." The thought had crossed my mind. Zara's. The voice came out steadier than she felt. Pride kept her spine straight even as her world tilted sideways. "Suppose you want me to apologize?" "Actually, no." Marcus stood and moved to the window overlooking the city. "Ms. Winters, do you know what the biggest problem in the hospitality industry is? Rude customers?" The words slipped out before she could stop them, earning her a genuine laugh. "Fair point. But no, it's staff who are so focused on keeping their jobs that they forget why those jobs exist in the first place." He turned back to face her. "We're not in the business of serving food. We're in the business of creating experiences, of making people feel valued and respected. How can we do that if we don't value and respect each other?" Zara frowned, trying to process his words. "I don't understand. If you believe that, why did you act like such a she caught herself just in time arrogant bastard?" Marcus's smile was rueful. "Because I needed to see who my people really are when they think no one important is watching. I've been doing these ... valuations ... for 6 months now. Different restaurants, different personas, always testing how my staff handled difficult situations that ... double quotes." Zara searched for words. "That's manipulative. It's necessary." His expression grew serious. "Last quarter, I received over 300 complaints about staff behavior servers who ignored customers. Managers who prioritized profits over people, entire locations where the culture had become toxic. I needed to understand what was really happening on the ground level." Marcus returned to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. "Would you like to know what I discovered? 90% of my employees, when faced with a truly unreasonable customer, will bend over backward to accommodate them. They'll move families from their tables. They'll comp expensive meals for people throwing tantrums. They'll even tolerate verbal abuse, all in the name of customer service." He opened the folder and slid a photograph across the desk. It showed Zara from the previous night, standing straight and dignified as she faced him down. "You're the first person in 6 months who told me no. The first person who put basic human decency above corporate profits." Zara stared at the photo, her mind reeling. "You had someone taking pictures?" "I always document these evaluations. For legal purposes, primarily some of my performances don't go over well." Marcus sat down again, his expression growing more animated than she'd seen it. "But yours was different. You didn't just refuse service. You did it with class, with principle. You've protected your colleague without making yourself the victim. That's leadership, Ms. Winters." "I was just doing what felt right." "Exactly." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes bright with something that looked almost like excitement. "That's why I want to offer you a position as Director of Guest Experience for the entire Pinnacle chain. You'd be responsible for developing training programs, establishing service standards, and ensuring that every location maintains the kind of culture you demonstrated last night." Zara felt the world tilt again. You want to promote me? After I refused to serve you? I want to promote you because you refused to serve me. Marcus's smile was genuine now, transforming his entire face. The question is, are you interested in helping me build something better? The opportunity. 3 weeks later, Zara stood in the gleaming conference room on the 32nd floor of Blackwood Enterprises, watching Vincent Chambers flip through her presentation materials with the intensity of a man dissecting a particularly challenging crossword puzzle. As operations director, Vincent oversaw the day-to-day management of all Pinnacle locations, and his approval would be crucial for implementing her new training initiatives. Interesting approach, Vincent murmured, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Though I'm curious about the cost projections for the empathy workshops. Seems like a significant investment for something rather, intangible. Marcus entered the room before Zara could respond, carrying 2 cups of coffee and looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Over the past weeks, she'd begun to notice these small changes, how his shoulders weren't quite so rigid during their morning meetings, how he actually listened when she spoke, rather than simply waiting for his turn to talk. Vincent giving you the 3rd degree about emotional intelligence metrics again? Marcus set 1 coffee in front of Zara, and she caught the brief smile he offered along with it. He's been asking me to quantify human dignity since I hired him. Someone has to worry about the bottom line, Vincent replied dryly, though there was affection in his voice. Zara's ideas are admirable, but if they don't translate to improved customer satisfaction scores and revenue growth, the board will want our heads. Zara sipped her coffee, perfectly prepared with just a touch of cream, exactly how she liked it. Marcus had started bringing her coffee every morning, claiming it was more efficient than waiting for her to navigate the executive break room. She suspected there was more to it than efficiency, but she hadn't quite figured out what. Actually, I think you'll find the numbers support my approach. Zara pulled up her laptop and projected the screen onto the wall. I've been tracking the pilot program at the downtown location for 2 weeks now. Customer satisfaction scores are up 18%, and more importantly, staff turnover has dropped to nearly 0. Vincent leaned forward, suddenly more interested. Show me the data. For the next hour, Zara walked them through her findings. She'd started small, implementing 20-minute weekly meetings, where staff could share challenging customer interactions and brainstorm solutions together. She'd created simple guidelines that prioritized respect and dignity while still maintaining excellent service. Most revolutionary of all, she'd given servers permission to politely decline serving customers who were abusive to staff, provided they offered alternatives and informed management immediately. The key insight, Zara explained, is that customers actually respond better to confident, empowered staff than they do to people who are clearly afraid of losing their jobs. When you remember Tommy from that first night when he started carrying himself with more confidence? His tips increased by 30%. Marcus had grown increasingly quiet as the presentation continued, and Zara found herself stealing glances at him. His expression was thoughtful, almost distant, as if her words were triggering memories or realizations he hadn't expected. There's something else, she continued, clicking to her final slide. 3 customers from that pilot location have specifically requested to be seated in sections where staff seem genuinely happy to be there. They're noticing the difference in atmosphere. Vincent was scribbling notes furiously now. If we can replicate these results across all locations, we're talking about a cultural transformation that actually improves profitability, Marcus finished, his voice carrying a note of something that sounded almost like wonder. Zara, this is remarkable work. The warmth in his praise sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. Over the weeks, their professional relationship had evolved into something more complex. Marcus would linger after meetings to ask her opinion on matters that went far beyond guest services. He'd started sharing stories about his vision for the company, his voice growing passionate in a way that made her forget he was supposedly one of the city's most ruthless businessmen. I'd like to fast-track this, Marcus continued. Vincent, can you arrange visits to our 5 highest-performing locations next week? I want Zara to present this program to those managers personally. As Vincent gathered his materials and left, chattering excitedly about implementation timelines, Zara found herself alone with Marcus. He'd moved to the window, his hands clasped behind his back as he looked out over the city. "You've been quiet today," she observed, packing up her laptop. "Everything all right?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. When he finally turned, his expression was more vulnerable than she'd ever seen it. "Can I ask you something? That night at the restaurant when you refused to serve me, were you afraid?" Terrified, Zara admitted, "I needed that job. I've got student loans, rent, my dad's medical bills." She paused, studying his face. "Why do you ask?" "Because you did it anyway." Marcus moved closer, and she caught a hint of his calling something warm and understated that suited him better than the aggressive persona he'd worn that first night. "I've been thinking about that, about what kind of person acts on principle when they have everything to lose. The same kind of person who spends 6 months pretending to be someone else to figure out what's wrong with his company," Zara suggested. Softly, something shifted in Marcus's expression. Suppression, surprise, maybe, or recognition. "I suppose we're both willing to take risks for what we believe in. Is that what you were doing that night? Taking a risk?" Marcus was quiet for so long that Zara thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I was testing whether anyone in my own company would see me as a human being worth defending, rather than a profit margin worth protecting." The admission hung in the air between them, raw and unexpected. Zara felt her heart contract with sudden understanding, not just of that night, but of the man standing in front of her, who'd built walls so high that he had to go undercover in his own company to find authentic human connection. "Oh, Marcus," she said gently, "you know that's not a test anyone should have to take, right?" For just a moment, his carefully constructed composure cracked completely, and Zara saw something that looked almost like relief in his eyes. The understanding the emergency call came at 2 in the morning. Zara fumbled for her phone, squinting at the caller ID through sleep-blurred eyes. Marcus never called this late their relationship, whatever it was becoming. Maintained professional boundaries even as those boundaries grew increasingly fluid. "Zara," his voice was strained, lacking its usual controlled cadence. "I'm sorry to wake you, but I need. Could you meet me at Mercy General Hospital?" She was already reaching for her clothes. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "It's my brother, James. Car accident." I don't know who else to call." 40 minutes later, Zara found Marcus in the hospital's waiting room, still wearing his tuxedo. From whatever corporate function he'd attended that evening, his bow tie hung loose around his neck, and his usually perfect hair was disheveled from running his hands through it. He looked younger somehow, stripped of the commanding presence that defined him in boardrooms and business meetings. "Any news?" she asked softly, settling into the plastic chair beside him. "Surgery." The word came out hollow. They said 3 hours, maybe 4. Internal bleeding, possible spinal injury. He stared at his hands, which were shaking slightly. "We had dinner last week. First time in months. Kept checking my phone, answering emails. He asked me to put it away. Said he missed talking to his big brother instead of the CEO. Marcus's voice cracked on the last word, and Zara felt her heart break for him. She'd heard him mention James only briefly, something about family obligations and disappointed expectations. And she was beginning to understand the weight he carried. "Tell me about him," she said, hoping to distract him from the worst-case scenarios playing out in his mind. A ghost of a smile crossed Marcus's face. "He's everything I'm not. Patient, kind, completely uninterested in business. He teaches 3rd grade at an inner-city school, makes $30,000 a year, and he's happier than anyone I know." Marcus leaned back against the wall, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "When our parents died, I was 25, he was 17. I threw myself into building the company, convinced I was doing it for both of us. James just wanted his brother back. That must have been incredibly difficult for both of you. I told myself I was protecting him, providing for him, but really..." Marcus closed his eyes. "Really, I was hiding. It was easier to be the ruthless businessman than to face the fact that I'd lost the 2 people who loved me unconditionally. I was terrified of losing anyone else." Diane Morrison, Marcus's assistant, appeared in the waiting room around 4 a.m. with fresh coffee and a change of clothes. Zara had met Diane several times during her transition to the corporate office. A sharp woman in her 50s who managed Marcus's impossible schedule with military precision. But tonight, Diane's usual professional demeanor gave way to something gentler. "Any updates?" Diane asked, handing Marcus a cup of coffee and nodding warmly at Zara, still in surgery. Marcus accepted the coffee gratefully. "Diane, you didn't need to come down here." "Of course I did. James is practically family." Diane settled into a chair across from them, and Zara caught the meaningful look she gave her. "I'm glad Zara's here with you. You shouldn't be alone right now," as dawn broke through the hospital. Windows, Dr. Patricia Reeves emerged from the surgical suite, still in scrubs, but wearing a cautiously optimistic expression. "Mr. Blackwood, James is stable. The surgery went well. We repaired the internal bleeding, and while there was some spinal bruising, we don't expect any permanent damage." Marcus sagged with relief, years of tension seeming to leave his body. "All at once? Can I see him?" "He's sedated, but yes, just for a few minutes." As Marcus disappeared down the hallway with the doctor, Diane turned to Zara with knowing eyes. "In 10 years of working for Marcus, I've never seen him call anyone for personal support. Business emergencies? Yes. Board meetings, acquisition, deals, crisis management, he has contacts for all of that. But this, ... double quotes, she smiled warmly. This is different." Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "We work closely together." "The guest experience program requires, honey," Diane interrupted gently. "I've seen Marcus work closely with hundreds of people. He's never looked at any of them the way he looks at you." When Marcus returned 30 minutes later, his face was lighter than Zara had ever seen it. "He's awake. Groggy, but awake. First thing he said was that he hopes this doesn't interfere with our standing dinner date next Wednesday." Marcus's voice caught slightly. "He made me promise not to reschedule for any business meetings, and will you?" Zara asked, though she thought she already knew the answer. "Every Wednesday for the rest of our lives, if he wants." Marcus looked at her then, really looked at her, with an expression so open and vulnerable that it took her breath away. "Zara, I don't know how to thank you for being here. For the past month, you've shown me what it looks like to lead with integrity, to build something meaningful rather than just profitable. And tonight you just showed up because I needed someone to show up. Marcus, I'm falling in love with you," he said quietly, the words carrying the weight of someone who didn't make such admissions lightly. "I know that complicates everything. Our working relationship, the power dynamics, the fact that I'm probably the last person who deserves someone as genuine as you. But sitting in this hospital, thinking about what matters, thinking about the kind of man I want to be, I couldn't let another day pass without you knowing." Zara felt tears prick her eyes for his honesty, for his vulnerability, for the impossible situation they now found themselves in. But mostly, she felt something that had been building for weeks, finally crystallized into certainty. "Marcus," she said softly, reaching for his hand, "I'm falling in love with you too. We're going to figure out everything else." For the first time since she'd known him, Marcus Blackwood smiled with no walls. No careful calculation, no protection against the possibility of loss. It was just a man, grateful to be loved exactly as he was. The resolution 6 months later. The quarterly board meeting at Blackwood Enterprises carried an unusual tension. Zara sat at the polished conference table, acutely aware of the scrutinizing gazes from the 12 board members as Marcus presented the company's performance metrics. The numbers were impressive: customer satisfaction up 37%, employee retention at an all-time high, and revenue growth exceeding projections by 15%. But Rebecca Hartford, the board's most senior member and Marcus's longtime critic, wasn't satisfied with numbers alone. "While these results are commendable," Rebecca said, her silver hair catching the afternoon light streaming through the windows, "I have concerns about the ... unconventional methods being employed." Her eyes fixed on Zara with barely concealed disapproval. "Empowering employees to refuse service, reducing profit margins to accommodate staff training, prioritizing worker satisfaction over shareholder turns. These strategies fly in the face of established hospitality industry practices." Marcus straightened in his chair, but Zara placed a gentle hand on his arm. They'd anticipated this challenge, and she was ready for it. Mrs. Hartford, Zara began, standing to address the room. May I share something that happened last week at our flagship location? Rebecca nodded curtly, clearly expecting to dismantle whatever anecdotal evidence Zara might present. Customer. Technology executive hosting potential investors arrived at Pinnacle downtown, demanding immediate seating despite having no reservation. In the past, our staff might have displaced another party to accommodate him, causing resentment and disruption. Instead, our host, trained in the new protocols, acknowledged his urgency and created a solution. Zara moved to the presentation screen, pulling up photos that showed a transformed private dining area. Within 20 minutes, our team had converted an unused meeting space into an intimate dining experience, complete with our sommelier's personal attention and a customized menu featuring dishes that would impress his guests. The result? A $4,700 check, 5 new corporate catering contracts, and a customer who specifically requested that host for all future reservations. She clicked to the next slide, showing testimonial quotes. But more importantly, the original party kept their reservation. Our staff felt proud of their creative problem solving, and everyone left feeling valued rather than manipulated. Board member Thomas Chen leaned forward, intrigued. And you're seeing this pattern consistently? Across all 43 locations, Zara confirmed. When we empower our people to think creatively rather than simply comply, they find solutions that benefit everyone. Our staff turnover has dropped 82%, which means we're spending less on training and more on innovation. Our customer loyalty scores are the highest in the industry, which translates to reliable revenue streams rather than one-time transactions. Marcus stood beside her, his pride evident as he continued. What Zara has built isn't just a customer service program, it's a cultural transformation that proves profitability and principles aren't mutually exclusive. Rebecca remained skeptical. When this approach fails, when customers walk away because they don't get exactly what they demand, it happens, Zara admitted honestly. Last month, we had a customer at the West Side location who became abusive when our server, Janet, couldn't accommodate his request to remove another family from their table. Janet followed. Protocol should remain respectful, but firm offered alternatives and called for management support. She clicked to another slide showing social media screenshots. The customer left angry and posted negative reviews online. But something interesting happened. Other customers who witnessed the interaction began posting their own reviews, praising Janet's professionalism and our company's commitment to treating all guests with equal respect. Within 48 hours, we received over 200 positive reviews and 17 new reservation requests specifically asking for Janet as their server. The room fell silent as board members processed this information. Finally, Rebecca spoke again, her tone noticeably softer. You're suggesting that standing for something actually attracts customers rather than repelling them. I'm suggesting that people are hungry for authentic experiences, Zara replied. They want to patronize businesses that align with their values, that treat employees well, that create environments where everyone feels respected. When we stopped trying to please everyone and started standing for something meaningful, we discovered there are far more people who share those values than we ever imagined. After the board members filed out several, stopping to compliment Zara's presentation, she found herself alone with Marcus in his office. The late afternoon sun painted golden rectangles across his desk, where he was reviewing the implementation timeline for expanding the program to their upcoming West Coast locations. You know, Marcus said without looking up from his paperwork, when I first promoted you, I thought I was hiring someone to fix our customer service problems. And instead, you've got someone who completely transformed your business philosophy. Zara settled into the chair across from his desk, the same one she'd sat in that first shocking morning when she'd discovered his identity. Instead, I got someone who showed me that the problems weren't with our systems, they were with our soul. Marcus finally looked up, his eyes holding that soft expression she'd grown to treasure. You didn't just change how we serve customers, Zara. You changed how we see ourselves. 3 months later, James Blackwood stood as best man at his brother's wedding, still walking with a slight limp, but grinning widely as he watched Marcus and Zara exchange vows in the garden behind. Pinnacle's original location, the ceremony was small, just family, close friends, and the Pinnacle staff who had become like family over the past year. Tommy, now assistant manager of the downtown location, had helped arrange the flowers. Janet from Westside had insisted on providing the catering, assembling a team of servers from various locations who volunteered their time. Vincent had walked Zara down the aisle, having become something of a surrogate father figure during the months of planning. As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Zara thought about the journey that had brought them here from that confrontational night when she'd refused to serve him, to this moment when she was promising to stand beside him for the rest of their lives. "You know what the best part is?" Marcus whispered, as they shared their first dance under string lights that twinkled like stars. "We built something beautiful together at the business, this relationship, a future where people matter more than profit margins." Zara smiled, remembering his words from that hospital waiting room about hiding behind his professional persona. The man holding her now was the same person who'd walked into her restaurant that night. But he was also completely transformed, someone who'd learned that true strength came from vulnerability, that real leadership meant serving others, and that the best businesses were built on the foundation of genuine human connection. "Here's to never serving anyone we can't respect," she said, echoing the principle that had started it all. "And here's to building something worth serving," Marcus replied, spinning her under the lights as their chosen family celebrated around them. In the distance, the Pinnacle sign glowed warmly against the night sky, no longer just a restaurant chain, but a symbol of what became possible when people had the courage to put principles before profit, authenticity before approval, and love before everything else.